Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to my class. Um, Today I will be doing an overview on the IELTS reading test. And before I begin, let me tell you something about myself. My name is Rifa Zahir and I'm the founder of British English Trainers. I have an experience of close to a decade in both teaching and training IELTS students and tutors. In today's class, I will be focusing on, like I mentioned earlier, on essential aspects of the IELTS reading examination. Before we begin, a little bit more about me. I initially started my career as an IELTS administrator. I was an IELTS administrator for East India for 5 years. I conducted IELTS examination all over the eastern part of the country. Post that, I started, like I mentioned earlier, trained and taught students and tutors both who went on to train other students for the IELTS examination. I personally love IELTS examination and I'm very passionate about it. My sole focus while teaching IELTS is to look into the needs of the students and try to help them as much as possible so that they are able to achieve their score. All right. I've taught more than 5,000 IELTS students and it consists of both academic and general training students. So, yeah, that's it about me. And if you would like to ask any questions, you can always put it in the chat box below. Before I begin, let's have a look and see who else is there in the classroom. Okay, let's start with today's class. All right. So, in today's class, we are going to discuss about, like I said, the reading test examination. Before I begin, before I begin, my referral code is just a second. Yes, live chat. Do we have someone in the class? Looks like we have someone in the class right now. All right. So, okay, let's begin. My referral code is BE Trainers. BE Trainers gives you a 10% discount if you register with this code on the Unacademy platform. All right. Um, if you subscribe with this particular code, not only will you have access to my classes, but you will have access to all the classes conducted by experts all around the country. So you can choose anyone who you would like to watch, for arranging in different categories from listening, reading, writing, speaking, and grammar essential for IELTS. You'll also get different types of languages, and whichever one you are more comfortable in, you can listen to that. Another thing, uh, there are lots of different types of subscriptions which you can avail of. The most common one being the 3 month and the 6 month subscription. We also have 1 month subscriptions on the Unacademy platform. But I would suggest that if you are registering for the IELTS examination and if you've got time in your hands, you should avail of a 3 month subscription because that gives you a lot of time to practice and make use of the platform. And not only are you able to adopt the strategies which are given in the IELTS examination by given for the IELTS examination by the different educators, but also it gives you the time to practice whatever is spoken on these platforms. All right, so now let's begin and have a look at what are the different aspects of the IELTS reading test that we are going to cover today. Okay, before we begin, it's very important to know what the IELTS examination stands for. The International English Language Testing System tests the abilities of candidates wishing to study or work abroad. If you would like to study abroad, then you apply for the academic module. And if you would like to work abroad or immigrate to a particular country, you would go for the general training module. IELTS is recognized by more than 2,000 institutes in the USA, including all the Ivy League universities. Let me also add out here that IELTS is recognized by Australia, UK, Canada, New Zealand, and so many more countries. So it is the best exam to give if you would plan to study or migrate to any one of these countries. Clear? And IELTS is taken by over 1 million candidates a year. So that is what I would tell you about the general IELTS structure. Now, moving on to the actual IELTS test day examination. Excuse me. Yeah. So let's move on to the next part. Now, this is how the IELTS exam pattern is like. The IELTS exam pattern consists of the listening test, the reading test, the writing, and the speaking. The listening test, you get 40 questions. Let's move up. Listening test, you get 40 questions. No extra time is given in the reading test, but extra time is given in the listening test. So 30 minutes listening out to the audio and answering your questions on the question paper. Then 10 minutes of transfer time. For reading, you will be getting 1 complete hour. Please be informed that during the reading examination, whatever number of questions you get, or the comprehensions that you get, it's important to understand that you have to transfer all the answers from the question paper to the answer sheet within that 1 hour period. Excuse me. You will, unlike the listening test, you will not get any extra time to transfer your answers from the question paper to the answer sheet. All right, and that is something which is very important. Since you will not be getting any extra time to transfer your answers from the question paper to the answer sheet, it is very important that you manage your time effectively and you transfer it as you do the answers, as as you attempt the questions. It's very important that you transfer the answers from the question paper to the answer sheet. You are not going to be marked for anything that you write on your QP or your question paper, so it's imperative that you write all your answers in the answer sheet. All right, okay. uh, there is a particular kind of an OMR answer sheet that you get for the listening and the reading module. For the listening module, it is written, you have to write on one side of the answer sheet and the reading module on the other side. Please remember, everything has to be written in the chronological manner, in a chronological manner. So be very careful of that. All right. Now, that is for you. Reading. Writing consists of task 1 and task 2, and speaking has 3 sections. Okay. Now, writing also consists of 60 minutes of, task 1 20 minutes, task 2 40 minutes, and speaking consists of 11 to 14 minutes. So speaking part 1, speaking part 2, speaking part 3. Speaking is not conducted on the same day as the writing, listening, reading, writing examination. It is conducted on a different day. It could be 7 days before the test or 7 days after the test. Hi Pachu, welcome to my class. So nice to see you. Everything. Today's class is going to cover all your queries in regard to reading examination. Just relax and watch everything. And at any point you have any doubts, Pachu, just put down the questions. I will be watching it today step by step and seeing whatever queries you have. So if you have any doubts, just write down the question. I will be discussing every aspect of the reading examination. This is a very intensive reading class that we are going to have today. So you will not have a lot of doubts at the end of the class. Now let's begin. How long is the IELTS academic reading modules? I am going to tell you. Let me start. Okay. There are 3 reading passages of about 850 words each. In total, the 3 passages can contain up to 2750 words. So 2750 words. You have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions. Alright. This means you should spend approximately 20 minutes on each passage. I have a very clear strategy when it comes to reading test, and it has worked exceptionally well when it comes to the reading examination. Since I have started with the academic reading module first, now let me just tell you, I am going to talk about the academic reading module first, and I'm going to talk to you about the general training reading module. There is only a slight difference between the two. Basically, it is in the structure and the content of the text. Otherwise, it is almost the same. The question types are exactly the same. It is only, I know Pachu, you are academic. So that's the reason why the GT is, the slight variation that general training has will be discussed in the last part of the class. Otherwise, the academic and the general training module are exactly the same when it comes to question types, different when it comes to the number of reading scripts, number of reading comprehensions. All right. Now, what type of text will I have to read? Now, this is a very, very important question when it comes to IELTS reading examination. Uh, there are 3 texts, right? You've got the first one, which is comparatively easier. The second one, which is also a little easy. And the third one, which is the most difficult one. Now, a lot of people find the third one difficult also because they do not have enough time to do the third one. Because what happens is you land up spending a lot of time in reading passage 1 and reading passage 2. So you do not get a lot of time for the third part of the IELTS reading examination. Now we have a solution on how to resolve that. That I'll talk to you later. But right now it's very important to understand what the 3 passages are all about. You don't have to do any mind map for any passage, Pachu. I will come back to that later. Why would you need to do a mind map for a reading passage? That is wastage of time. So, mind map is for writing. In fact, mind map is for writing task 2 only. Generally, we do not do a mind map for any reading passage. What we do is we approach it in a methodical, manner, which I'll explain to you in the latter half of the class. The first passage is usually of a general scientific nature, but all 3 are of the types of articles found in examinations, in magazines and journals. Are of the types of articles found in magazines and journals. The level of the difficulty of the texts and tasks increases through the module. Throughout the module. Now, I'll tell you how it increases. There is a reason for this also. what happens is when we are doing the IELTS reading examination, part 1, the reading passage 1, especially in the academic module, is quite easy. It is not very difficult. What happens is students land up spending close to 20 minutes on that, which turns out to be very, very dangerous. Now, considering the fact that passage 2 and passage 3 are going to have more number of questions, you will have one extra question either in passage 2 or passage 3. Mostly it is in passage 3. So it is very, very important to understand that I definitely will have to spend more time for passage 3. Now, if I have to spend more time for passage 3, it is very important for me to understand that passage 3 has to be given more time. So how will I give it, compared to the other two texts? How will I give it more time? This is how I'm going to give it. Passage 1, reading 1 should finish by 16 to 17 minutes. The moment you get the reading question paper, you should relax and tell yourself, I'm going to quickly do this because this is the easiest one. Another thing, invariably matching the headings, whichever question paper has matching the headings, is going to take a little bit more time than the other activities, right? So it's very important to understand that you have to see which question is placed where. If you have matching the headings and true false not given in the last part of the question paper, you are going to face time crunch. So please plan accordingly. 16 to 17 minutes for passage 1, passage 2 20 minutes max, and passage 3 20 to 22 minutes. That is how you decide your time between the three passages. All right. Now, let's have a look at the types of questions. The types of questions are multiple choice questions, short answer questions, completion and matching tasks, yes, no, not given, true, false, not given. Okay? And you must write your answers on the answer sheet. You're not given any extra time to do this. Remember, there is no extra time given for you to transfer your answers from the question paper to the answer sheet. Now, I'll quickly go through the types, Pachu, and then I'll answer all your queries. This is your reading band, descriptor. In the sense, reading band score information sheet. You can see how you get your scores very clearly. If you get anywhere between 33 to 37, then you're going to get a band score 7. If you get anywhere between 25 to 32, it ranges from 6 to 6.5. And it's very important to understand, and which I repeatedly tell to all my students, that the band score is different for academic and different for general training. So we'll come to that. MCQs, multiple choice questions. Okay, now 1 mark is awarded for each of the 40 questions. You are not penalized for wrong answers, but you will receive no marks for an unanswered question. Very, very important to understand that in case you do not know an answer, uh, please do not leave it unanswered, because if you do not write an answer, you're still going to get a negative scoring. If you write a wrong answer, then also you're going to get a negative scoring, means you will get a 0 for that, but you won't be penalized for it. So that in itself should tell you that it's important that you answer all the 40 questions. Even if you're giving it a blank shot, I would suggest please do it. You will lose marks if you make spelling or grammar mistakes. Very, very important. especially in reading, I don't see any reason for students to make spelling and grammar errors. It's very, very important that you mention the grammar. You when you write the answer, please check if it is given in plural in the text. Please check whether the subject in the question is in the singular or the plural. A major error that students make is what they think is in the text it is given in singular, so I'm writing it in my answer sheet in terms of the question, it'll still be in the singular. No, it won't. It depends on how the question has been framed in the question paper. Please do not just go by the reading text. If you found the answer, check and see whether the sentence formation indicates whether it is singular or whether it is plural. I hope that's clear. Pachu, are you listening to what I'm telling you? I have had a look at your answer questions. I will answer each one of them, so you don't have to worry at all. Clear? Now let's move ahead. What are the main reading skills tested in the reading module? Scanning, skimming, understanding main ideas, reading for detail, understanding opinions. Now, these are the different categories which we have to focus on in the IELTS reading examination. How is it sequenced? 1 to 40. Timing is very important. Ideally, you should move on to the next passage after 18 to 19 minutes, even if you've not finished. Okay, this will give you approximately 3 to 6 minutes before the end of the test to go back and complete any unfinished questions. My experience, I have had so many students who've given the IELTS exam, and the strategy that works very well with them is we do the reading passage 1 first, then we do the reading passage 3, and then we do the reading passage 2 in my classes. I'll tell you how this works. The moment you do the reading passage 3, the pressure goes down off your head. What happens is, since reading passage 3 is more taxing, it's more difficult, and you will invariably see matching the headings question will always be in passage 3. So what happens is, if you complete that earlier, you feel much lighter when you do passage 2. And also remember, passage 3 has one extra question. So normally you have, if you go through the sequence, you'll see that passage 3 always has more questions than passage 1 and 2. Now, 1 to 2 minutes looking for headings and subheadings, diagrams, questions and tasks, first and last sentence of each paragraph, writer's purpose, describe a situation, make comparisons to give recommendations. Now, I'm going to answer your question, Pachu, at this stage. You had asked me, just a second. How can we do a mind map for reading, right? So you had asked me, how can we do a mind map for reading? I'll tell you how you can do a mind map for reading, in the sense when you are doing matching the headings. That is the only time when you need the mind map. Now, I'll tell you a very, very quick suggestion to doing the mapping. Every paragraph that you read, write a main idea on the left hand side of the paragraph. Like, suppose we are reading a paragraph on the growth and development of the country in the 20th century. So one paragraph will talk about what was the condition at that point, how did it improve, what were the steps that were taken to improve it. So beside the paragraph, the moment you see matching the headings, that is the main point. The moment you see matching the headings on the left hand side, if that is what mind map is for me. That is what it is, only to give small headings to each paragraph that I use a mind map for. Otherwise, the more you practice, the better you will be able to differentiate between main idea in the paragraph and the supporting idea. Another thing, the main idea and the supporting idea in the paragraphs are explained further with the help of linkers or signposting language. Have you gone through the signposting language video that I had asked you to? Pachu? Signposting. Have you gone through signposting language? Pachu, I need an answer from you. Okay, there's no answer. The thing is, signposting language video which I had asked you to go through, I think in the class before the last one, very clearly spoke about. Yes, but it is not only but, however, I have done a complete video on what kind of signposting is relevant for listening, for reading, for writing, for speaking. Please go through that. Okay, so those are the ones which help you identify which is the main idea and which is the supporting idea. All right, and also further explanations are given. Like I said, the more you read, the better you'll be able to solve it. Now, after you overview a passage, you know what you are reading about the topic, why you are reading, the questions and tasks, and how to read, skimming or scanning. Such an approach will also help you keep focused on the task. You do not need to read every word in the text to be able to answer the question. So that's the reason why skimming is very, very important. So when we say skimming, a lot of students think it is about missing just keywords. No, it is not keywords. Just like a cream is skimmed off the milk. Similarly, it's when we skim, we are doing a very casual reading of the text, just to understand the general gist of the text. Now, there are different skills and strategies that we have to follow in order to become better in academic reading and general training reading for that matter. Identify the writer's overall purpose. Identify and follow key arguments in a text. So just a second. So identify and follow key arguments in a text. Identify opinions and attitudes and not simply facts. Now, why do we need the opinions and attitudes? We need it for yes, no, not given. We need it for, the global idea of the text. So we need to understand what the speaker is trying to say. In our case, the speaker is the person who has written the text. So that is very, very important. Look at specific information, read for detailed information. Now, academic reading skills and strategies, like I said, include very clearly separating the main idea from the supporting detail. Recognize key points in a summary. Group information in a text in accordance with relevant criteria. That means maybe two paragraphs talk about different aspects of the um, manufacturing of bricks. This is the writing task one topic, but maybe two paragraphs talk about that, and the third paragraph talks about another stage. So on the left hand side, just write down this particular paragraph talks about this particular. So maybe one the process on the left hand side, write the process. Again, the other one on the left hand side talk about the one part of the process. So make that make a very clear, you know, comparison. Make a very clear, you know, let's say listing of what each paragraph contains. Now this has to be done very fast. You cannot spend all the time in the world just reading through. My suggestion to you would be always to look at the questions. Hi, what does B stand for? Hello. Hello, B Singh. Okay, hi Ben. So welcome to the class, Ben. Whatever you've missed, later on you can watch the video and find out what parts you've missed. Right now we are looking at essential skills and strategies. Though we've got academic written on the top, it's for both academic and general training. I'm doing the academic bit first and then the general training. But the skills and strategies are exactly the same for both academic training and general training. Okay. Uh, Ben, which module are you going for, academic or general training? Um, Pachu, just keep writing the questions. I'll answer them. So separate them. Some of the answers I have already given to your questions. I have mentioned how you can recognize key points in a summary. In the sense, how the main idea from supporting idea can be separated. So it's very important to understand that we have specific linkers which separate the main idea from the supporting idea. Okay. So your requirement is 8.5 in each module. Let me tell you, Ben, listening, reading, and speaking uh, would still be achievable if you do a lot of practice. Writing requires a structured approach. Writing 8.5 will only happen if you follow the complete writing structure of the IELTS examination. Otherwise, it is not only, because you need to understand the IELTS examination is not only an examination which tests your English proficiency, it also is taking your examination to understand whether you have the ability to process the information that is being asked of you. And for that, there are structures. Okay, Pachu, I come back to you. I will answer that part. All right. You've asked me a lot of questions. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer. I'm keeping the last 10 minutes for all those questions. Ben, you can also post questions which you would like me to answer in regard to reading. So, in the meanwhile, I'm moving ahead and I'm explaining other aspects of the academic reading and the general training reading module. Okay, let's begin. So we extract information from a prose text. So how do we do that? Now this is a question that I wanted to answer in connection to true false not given. What happens is, when you are extracting information, you are also trying to understand the attitude and the meaning of what the text is all about, because otherwise true false not given is not going to be an easy task. True false not given involves a lot of detailing, a lot of understanding of what is being said. I'll give you a very quick example. So we have a class out here and the color of rose is red. So we have a student who comes and tells that this particular lady stole my bag and she is sitting in your classroom. What I know of the thief is that The thief was wearing the color of vermilion. So, what color is vermilion? Very important to understand. What is vermilion? Which color is it? Pachu, answer that. Vermilion is normally used in sindoor. Okay, so the color is red. Now, the thing to understand in here is, suppose in a class there is someone who is wearing a red t-shirt, who is wearing a maroonish red t-shirt, and who is wearing a pinkish red t-shirt. Now, who would the thief be? Invariably, the thief is going to be the one who is wearing the red t-shirt, right? But you need to understand, sometimes vermilion is also maroonish red. So the answer for this would be not given. So it's very, very important to understand which one. So it's very important to understand what the question is asking and whether the answer is relevant to the question, because matching the headings and true false not given are two places where these kind of vocabulary are given, which tend to mislead students, where you think describe is given in the text and description is given in the question. They may not be in relation to the same answer. So do not, just because another form of the verb has been given, don't think that is the exact paragraph which has the answer. It is misleading. The academic and the general training reading module are both misleading when it comes to vocabulary, when it comes to synonyms, especially when it comes to synonyms, sometimes exact words are given to mislead the audience, the students. So it's very important to understand the complete idea of the question in correlation to the text. So when it comes to passage A, this is what passage A talks about. Then you start comparing and seeing whether passage A, once I've read through passage A, first three lines, last three lines, understood the idea about passage A, which one does it match with? All right. Like I said, correct spellings. Skimming, when we skim text, we read very quickly and look at headings, subheadings, and the first lines of each section or paragraph. Now, skimming is a very important skill that is required for the IELTS examination, and very, very important for everyone to practice, especially when it comes to matching the headings. Please understand, for matching the headings, you do not need to go through the complete text all the time. You can do a quick reading and then do a second round of reading. Excuse me. Do a second round of reading on the first three questions and the last three questions. First three sentences and the last three sentences. Mostly the idea can be derived from that. Otherwise, what you can do is do an in-depth reading, and the in-depth reading is normally required for question passage D, E. You will notice the initial first few passages matching the heading and the last few are not very difficult. The ones in the middle are the ones which are more difficult. Okay. Again, our main idea is to understand the main idea or gist of the text. We also note any keywords that are repeated throughout the text. Scanning. When we scan a text, we are looking for a specific piece of information or specific words, and we ignore information that is not relevant. Scanning is a useful strategy to apply when the question asks for specific factual information. It is also a useful strategy to use to find the section of a text about which a question is asked. Now, these are some of the questions. How long is the reading text? How many sections do you have to answer? So I've answered almost all of that, and I hope your doubts have got cleared in regard to the reading examination. Now, let's have a look at the IELTS reading question types in a little more detail. But you can understand what happens is the rest of the lines are actually explaining the first few lines. So the main idea, just in writing we have the topic sentence and the explanation. Similarly, in reading, reading and writing are like, similar to each other. So if you look at a reading comprehension and if you look at a writing essay, writing part 2, you have the topic sentence, then you explain the topic sentence and you substantiate it with an example. Similarly, in reading, normally the first three lines talk about, or the first three sentences talk about the key idea of the paragraph, and then the explanation happens. One thing to note out here is if the last three sentences also are of the similar idea, then only it talks about the same thing. If it is of a different idea, then of course that particular text, that particular para will not match with the topic. Another errors which students make is they get two questions which are two parts of the same paragraph. This comes with matching the headings. All right. What happens is these two questions belong to the same para, same particular para. Now, which one is the right question, right sentence of the matching the heading? The one which has more quantity in that paragraph would be the right matching the heading. Is that clear? So these are the different types. We'll look at subcategories now. Multiple choice questions, what to do? There are three different types of MCQ questions. You will either have to choose one answer out of four, choose two answers out of five, choose three answers out of six. Yes, absolutely. The first option is the most common. Just a second. You may also have two different forms, which is completing a sentence or answering a question. All right. Now, how do you approach MCQs? MCQs test your ability to understand the main idea contained in a text and then look for specific information. You will need to quickly identify the main idea in order to locate the correct section of the text. When you do this, it will seem like two or three of the options could be the correct answer, and you therefore must read in much more detail to find the specific information that gives you the correct answer. Yes, three types of MCQs. Okay, but MCQs don't always come, like unlike matching the heading and yes no not given, which is a given in every examination. MCQs normally you don't get that many MCQs. So sometimes you get it in the examination, sometimes you may not get. Next one is identifying information. It tests your ability to identify specific information from the text. You have to decide if the statement in the question is true, agrees with the information in the text, false, disagrees or contradicts, not given, neither agrees nor contradicts with the text. Now, how to approach it? Now, the problem with true false not given is a lot of people have lots of doubts in regard to how to approach it. There is one way. Questions and answers are all in order. Questions relate to 2 to 5 paragraphs in the text. Read and underline keywords in the questions. Predict synonyms of keywords that might be used in the text. Scan the question where the info related to the question is given and identify key information. I'll just stop right here to answer one part, answer your question, Pachu. Pachu, how many test papers have you practiced? How many question papers have you practiced? Can you tell me? if you actually practice test papers one after the other, you will be in a position to determine which is the main idea. When we read about imagine this bottle out here, okay, this particular bottle out here, what is the reason why anyone would buy this bottle? This is my most common question. uh, the reason why anybody would buy a bottle is so that they would be able to store water in it and drink from comfortably from it, right? So a particular passage will talk about how, maybe use the keyword, normally people drink water from the bottles, and it is very comfortable for them to drink water from these bottles because the mouth of the bottle is narrow, because of which the water from the bottle does not spill over. So, can you see the main idea is the benefits of the bottle, right? So, that how did you come to know? From the first three sentences itself. So, that is the approach that you need to have. Is that clear? You'll have to do a lot more test papers. Reading is not easy because not only do you have to answer the questions, but you have to also manage your time. So it's very important that when it comes to reading, you give enough time to yourself to understand the question paper. Now, no, it isn't. Not at all. It's not always true. So you have to be careful about that. Uh, Another thing is, it could be what I was talking about was matching the headings. What you are talking about is true, false, not given. Now, the thing to understand here is true, false, not given is determined on three factors. The first factor is vocabulary. You will be able to understand whether a particular statement is true by looking at the keywords in the question and also correlating it with the keywords in the text. Now, the second category is inference. That means, what is the writer trying to tell you? That is the second category. So, that will come only after proper reading of that particular para. So it's very important to read. And the third category, which is the simplest of it all, true, false, not given, are in order. The questions are in order. So when you start, you exactly know that this question is in this particular paragraph. So you have to analyze the paragraph, you have to read. Initially, the first one or two TFNG or yes, no, not given questions are very easy to determine. It's not very difficult. So the whole idea is that you have to keep a tab of what you are reading. Be alert when you are reading, because unlike the yes no not given, unlike the matching the heading, which can happen from anywhere. Obviously the questions are not in format, the paras are, but the questions are not. True false not given has an order, so you have to read in detail, but also not get into that vicious cycle of going on reading again and again. Do a quick reading, then look at the questions, then come back and do. See, once you've done a quick reading and you look at the questions, you can easily identify the easier ones and do true, false, not given. The more difficult ones, you'll have to do a step by step approach. Another thing, not given means whenever you have a doubt, that answer is always going to be not given. When you do not have the exact information in the text, the answer will be not given. Now, identifying writer's views or claims, you need to decide if the statement given in the question agrees or contradicts with the writer's opinion in the text. The question type tests the ability to identify views or opinion of the writer. Now, these are, if you go back, identifying information is true, false, not given. Identifying the writer's views or claims is yes, no, not given. Now, the thing to understand here is the thing is when you are tackling it, always mark the area which has the similar, text. Always mark it from where it is, the question is based on which part of the passage. Underline the keywords in the passage. Then think of the reason why it is confusing is because it is associated vocabulary. It is not the exact synonym. It could be a description of the idea which has been presented in the question, or it is an associated vocabulary. So you have to be aware of what it is. And in order to be aware of what it is very, very important that, just a second, it is very, very important that you mark the part, look at the keywords, understand and correlate with the question. Now, Pachu, on the day of the exam, you won't be able to do this if you have not practiced this at least 15 to 16 times before the main day of the exam. So, all this requires you to practice. That is the only way out. And I've already told you, just like writing, reading also has topic sentences which help you identify the different parts. Now, questions and answers in order, underline keywords in questions, scan text to find information, read and check if the statement agrees, disagrees. Questions can paraphrase the information like we discussed. If answer is no, it will explicitly contradict with the information. If the statement in the question does not mention author's opinion, then the answer is not given. Don't forget to write yes, no, not given on the answer sheet. Please do not write true, false, not given. Now, matching information or the global view. Sections are paragraphed or labeled as ABC. You need to write the corresponding letter. Questions and answers are not in order. So this is matching information. Skim text to get an overview. Read topic sentence. Underline keywords. Scan the text for specific information. Now this is normally a shorter question, ABC, and it has writers, a particular writer may have said this, a particular writer may have said this. So you'll have three writers, their names, and then you'll have to match with the different paragraphs. Uh, Not match with the different paragraphs, sorry, match with what each writer has said. Skim, matching information, same thing. Now matching headings. Headings are short sentences. You need to understand. So the idea that all the matching the heading questions are difficult is not true. There are certain parts of the matching the heading questions which are comparatively easier. So, in fact, the first one, the second one, the last one, you will notice they are not that difficult. The ones in the middle are the ones which are more difficult. So you will see passage 4 and 5, you will have a lot of confusion. So those are the ones where they give you 2 or 3 extra options to in order to mislead you. And like I said, if you look at the first part and the last part, you will be able to come out of this confusion. Okay, this part of it has got it's not visible. I wish I could. Let me see if I can fix this. Let me see. Oh God. Okay, we'll still go ahead. We go up, up, up. Matching the heading questions are always supposed to be done first because they are the most time consuming ones, and that is the reason why everyone does matching those type of questions first. If there are 2 or 3 headings that are similar, write them beside the paragraph and try to find out the difference between the two headings. What are the keywords? How does this change the meaning? Which one matches the paragraph best? If you still can't decide which one suits best, move on and come back to it later. The answer will normally be easier to find after you have matched some more headings. Don't read too quickly. Uh, some, in fact, just tell you to skim the text because you don't have much time. But you skim first, you look at the questions, and then again you come and do a detailed reading. Don't look at the headings first because this can be very misleading. It's always good to look at read the passage, skim the passage, then look at the headings and then do a detailed reading. I'll still try to fix this particular slide. We'll just duplicate the slide and delete the ones below. I think that would be better, so that whoever watches this later will be able to have a look at the whole thing. So there we go. All right. Okay. Fine. Doesn't matter. So let's see how we can fix this. All right. So everyone will have this is perfect. So I'm glad. So we can do from here, delete from here. Okay. All right. There, this one looks good to go. Okay. We are back. No. So I'm back. So now you've had a look at the matching the heading suggestions. I've divided it into two slides, so it'll be easier for you to have a look at it later on. Now, matching features, which again uh, is a little different. You are given a number of statements which you need to match to options in the box. The options may include types of architecture, name of resources, researchers, historical time periods, etc. Both sentences and options may be synonyms or paraphrases of the info in the text. Questions and answers will not be in the same order. There could be technical vocabulary or jargons used. How to approach? Skim for an overview. Look at the section where the info is given. Start with the first statement and underline the keywords. Be clear about what you are looking for. Name, date, etc. Skim and scan the text back and forth until the info is located. Alright. So these are the different aspects of the different question types clearly explained for you. Now, uh, let's look at how long is the IELTS GT module. Same as the academic. The only difference is the general training module has 4 to 5 passages rather than just 3 separate passages. All right. Passage 1 deals with everyday topics, and they're the sort of text that a person would need to be able to understand when living in an English speaking country. You'll need to pick out important information, example from notices, advertisements, and timetables. Section 2 focuses on work topics, for example, job descriptions, contracts, and staff development. The text in Section 3 deals with a more general topic. The style of writing in Section 3 is generally descriptive and instructive. It's similar to academic reading passage 3. And the section in text 3, Section 3 text is longer and more complex than the text in Section 1 and 2. Section 3 texts are taken from magazines, newspapers, and fictional and non-fictional book extracts. I hope that's clear. Alright, same as academic, exactly same. So is the band score. Please have a look at the breakup. The general training reading band scores are more almost like a one band lesser than the academic reading ones. Please refer to the IELTS.org website to understand the band score description clearly. And before I end, my referral code is BE Trainers, and you'll get a 10% discount if you register with this code on the Unacademy platform. And you've got access to all the live educators, all the expert educators on the Unacademy platform. I'm coming up with a new course from the 5th of December, which is obviously tomorrow. This is going to cover essential grammar and vocabulary, and the things that I'm going to do there, the topics that I'm going to cover there is going to be vocabulary for IELTS Writing Task 1, academic module, vocabulary for IELTS Writing Task 2, Task 1, general training module, writing task 2, vocabulary for IELTS speaking, pronouns, subject verb agreement and passive voice, verb forms and simple tense, perfect and continuous tense, doubt sessions again, so that if you've got any queries, we can look into that, and a separate section on modals. If you want to get a higher band score, this is the course for you. And you, like I said, if you register with my code uh, BE Trainers, you'll get a 10% discount on it. All right. I look forward to seeing you there in my course, which is going to start from tomorrow. Now, before I end, I'm going to answer a few of the questions that Pachu you've asked. Most of it I've answered. Uh, there was the specific questions that you had asked, how the reading text is sequenced. It has an order to it, in the sense the question types, some are sequenced, some are not in order. But the reading text follows a pattern. That means you will not find uncorrelated, not correlated material at the beginning or at the end. It's a part of a coherent structure. So everything is going to be in order in terms of understanding what the reading text is trying to tell you. Okay, so I'm going to end the class now. I hope you had a good class. I will be back here tomorrow for another class on the Unacademy platform. All right. Thank you. Good night.